Phantasy Star IV, Retold. Written by Michael Plymel. Narrated by Mason Bourne. Chapter 3. Jazz. What is this? Alice says in a rare display of surprise. Are these monsters growing inside those capsules? I ask, just as shocked. What's going on? Han says in disbelief. Stacked in the subterranean research lab are 6 large capsules made of glass, giving us a view of their contents. Among them, 5 have monsters growing inside, but the 6th is broken, and the reason for that is very clear. What a powerful monster, I say as I look at the huge distorted creature. Although its body is made of flesh, it's covered with a hard outer shell, giving us few options for places to attack. However, there's one area of its body that isn't protected. The massive tentacles that the boss-type monster uses to crawl along the ground is completely exposed. That gives it more maneuverability, but presents someone like Alice with a prime target. A few good hits with their slicer can take out enough of its tentacles to destroy its mobility. Normally, Alice would probably suggest a similar strategy, but there's one problem right now. Just how many monsters are there? Han asks, looking over the dozens of creatures that fill the room. Unlike the boss type, the others are the same simple monsters that we defeated at the top of the stairs. They're not a threat by themselves, but dealing with them while fighting one with unknown strength is dangerous. It's still difficult for me to estimate the strength of my enemies without engaging them first. Unlike me, Alice has mastered the art of analyzing an opponent's strength, even before fighting them. As long as she's confident in our victory, then I know we can win. I'll thin out the horde, Alice says. You take down the big one. All right, I was hoping you'd say that. With her slicer, Alice can take down the weaker monsters quickly. On the other hand, I can only attack what's directly in front of me, so it'd take me a long time to cut them down. Rather than groups, my speciality is facing a single opponent. With my 2 daggers and quick movements, I can often outpace them and find an opening to win. Combine that with my untold hours of training, and I've got the technique to back it up. The only problem is that no matter how much potential people think I have, I'm still a newbie hunter. I've got a lot of growing to do in many ways to catch up to someone like Alice. Still, she thinks I can take it down, so I've got no reason to hesitate. And what about me? Han asks. Just stay near the stairs, Alice says while casting her technique Shift. The special ability requires a form of mana to use that hunters refer to as technique points. Although technique points regenerate over time, it's a slow process, making it essential to know when to use them. Don't worry, Han. I give the young man a pat on his shoulder. Just relax and enjoy the show. Quick as ever, Alice wastes no time beginning the extermination. Her slicer has already taken the lives of 4 monsters, alerting the group to our presence. They immediately begin to swarm in our direction. Dozens of monsters in a large room, with the only exit being the stairs behind us. This was the expected reaction, of course, so there's no hesitation in me as I step forward. Alice's slicer traces a path ahead of me, cutting down several of those large-headed creatures who were blocking the way to their boss. There are still more between me and my target, but there aren't enough for me to slow my steps. I avoid several sprays of whatever they shoot from their tentacles, then stick one of my daggers into my first victim. It falls immediately. The next follows right after, and I finish off my initial charge with a 3rd swing, intending to take down another. But to my surprise, the blow is too shallow to finish it, and I'm forced to dodge its counter. The next strike does the job, and with another pass of Alice's slicer, I finally have an opening to the boss. Let's finish this in one go! I lower my stance and dig my feet into the stone floor. With a powerful push, I dash through that opening, my 2 daggers poised to deal a deadly blow. With my sudden burst of speed, I fly by all the monsters, straight toward the boss. Even the powerful creature can't react in time, and my weapons sink deep into its large, fleshy body. Of course, I picked a spot that isn't covered by its armor. However, the monster is so massive that my daggers don't sink deep enough to deal a critical hit. Looks like I'll have to use that combo. With my quick charge having ended, the boss monster's reactions catch up, and the tentacles beneath its body lash out at me. That was to be expected. Even if I've never fought this monster before, the shape of its body gives away its hand, like a poker player holding the cards backwards for all the others to see. So with a few precise strikes, I sever the tentacles reaching out to me. They squirm around on the ground as if still alive. But they don't seem to be moving with any clear intent. With its counter dealt with, I focus on my next strike. My daggers are already moving toward an exposed part of its body, but something about my weapons is different this time. Each dagger glows with a soft green light. The reason for that is simple. I've activated my technique, Earth. The special attack will paralyze any enemy hit while the skill is active. This particular ability is quick to use, making it ideal for catching opponents off guard. After inflicting them with the paralyze effect, stronger attacks can be used while they stand helplessly, often finishing the battle in the process. It's a common tactic for warrior-type hunters like myself, and I've used it with great success many times. As expected, with the tentacles dealt with, my daggers find the boss's flesh, and my Earth technique activates, sending a shock through the monster. I feel it stiffen, so I immediately ready my next attack. The technique I'm using next is strong against single opponents, but it does take a bit of time to charge. The paralyze effect syncs up perfectly with the charge time, which is what makes this such a powerful combination. Finally, my technique is ready, but there's one factor that I failed to consider. The boss's tentacles lash out toward me again just before I can strike, and I'm forced to leap away, putting me in a position where I can't land a clean blow. The paralyze effect ended that quickly? Depending on the strength of the enemy, status effects will have varying levels of potency. This is my first time fighting such a powerful monster on my own, and I misjudged how long the paralyze would last. With my combination foiled, I find myself surrounded by a small swarm of those monsters, even as the boss bears down on me. Alice has cleaned up over half of them now. There are still around 24 remaining, and I'm right in the middle of all them. Was this maybe a bad idea? I twist to avoid some of those creatures' acidic attacks, even as I lash out with my daggers, ending 2 of them. I turn toward the boss, intending to dash through a small opening to deliver another powerful strike. But just as I take off, several of its tentacles whip toward me. It's just a monster, so its attacks are easy to predict. No trickery, no thought, only a powerful instinct. With my endless training, dealing with such straightforward attacks is laughably easy. However, this monster's strength is on a different level compared to the usual breed. A single mistake can be deadly. Right here. I swing my dagger, and it meets one of the tentacles, cutting it in half. Next is... The other hand flashes, and the other tentacle hits the stone floor. I make several more quick strikes without slowing my steps. In the blink of an eye, the ground is littered with the boss's tentacles. I finally reach its body and activate the technique that specializes in defeating single opponents. However, I catch a glimpse of movement and turn just in time to see a caustic spray covering my vision. The acid attack coats my body, and I feel my skin begin to burn. The damage is manageable, but it delays my attack just enough to allow a tentacle to slam into me, knocking me back. I hit the ground and tumble, but quickly spring back to my feet, my 2 daggers still held in my hands. As soon as I stand, I find myself face to face with one of the smaller monsters, except this one has 2 heads, and its tentacles are thicker and longer. It's obvious at a glance that this one is a step above the others, and its tentacles are pointing right at my face, ready to unleash that spray of acid. Something zips by my ear, nearly close enough to give me a haircut. The tentacles that were on the verge of spraying acid in my face fall, along with the body of the monster attached to them. In one of its heads is a dagger, much like my own. I glance back and see Hans still standing in a throwing pose. Nice one! I toss him one of my daggers, then take the one from the monster on the ground. Thanks. What's going on? I ask as I avoid another spray. Where did that twin-headed monster come from? And why are there still so many enemies left? No matter how I think about it, I can't help but feel we've already killed enough of them to have wiped out the initial group, yet over 15 still remain. It's the tentacles, Han says. That's how that large creature is making these monsters. I eye one of the tentacles writhing on the ground, and to my surprise, it begins to change shape. The transformation continues until a twin-headed monster is standing in its place. Although it was just birthed, it has the unfortunate fate of being born just as Alice throws her slicer. As soon as it finally stands to its full height, it crumbles right back down to the ground where it belongs. So that's it. Then I just have to avoid them, rather than cut them. With the monster's ability revealed, I confidently step forward again. Han joins me this time, so we decide to finish the boss together. This will make getting a deadly blow easier. Han releases his technique Vision. The ability increases my dexterity, which heightens the speed of my attacks and makes getting a critical hit easier. Alright, with this we can win! I'll grab their attention and you can finish it. Okay, but be careful. Don't get surrounded. Han steps forward, and as expected of monsters that run on instinct, they focus on him. Can't waste this chance. Once again, I begin activating my technique. When Han has enough of their attention, I dash through an opening. The weaker monsters fly by, and in a flash, I'm at the boss. My daggers lash out, one horizontal, one vertical. Crosscut! The daggers sink deep, leaving long gashes on its body. A roar fills my ears, and the tentacles whip around wildly. A critical hit. The large monster is simply lashing out in a frenzy, making its attacks that much easier to avoid. I strike at its flesh again and again, making sure to avoid cutting any tentacles. In just a few attacks, the huge mass of flesh lets out a screech, then slumps to the floor. All right! I yell on reflex. Level up! I felt it as soon as the monster perished, that surge of strength. Don't let it go to your head, Alice says as she catches her slicer. The final monster just hit the ground, putting an end to the battle. I know, my instructor said the same thing. Did your instructor also warn you to test the length of the paralyze effect from your earth technique before relying on it in combat? Oh, you're right. I should have tested it against the monster first to determine how effective it is. That's right. Next time try fighting with your head a bit more. Alice gives me her usual merciless critique. That was some uncanny timing. Han notes. You defeated the boss just as Alice defeated the smaller monsters. No, that wasn't a coincidence or anything. It wasn't? Alice was waiting for me to defeat it. Seriously? Are you saying this was some kind of training? Well, it's my first mission after all. Isn't that kind of thing normal? Han doesn't seem convinced, but he'll just have to accept it. Anyway, I continue. You surprised me, Han. You really do know how to use that dagger. I have a bit of training. Not enough to be a hunter, though. Have you thought of becoming a trainee? There are plenty of hunters who start in their 20s, so you'll fit right in. And if you need someone to vouch for you, give them my name. Your name? Alice says. Why would the recruiters care what some greenhorn hunter says? I may be a newbie right now, but that won't be the case forever. I'll make a name for myself in no time. Alice begins walking off toward one of the capsules. Well, until that day comes, if you need a recommendation, you can give them my name instead. Seriously? That'd basically ensure being picked for training. I look to Han and see surprise on his face, along with a small smile. For a fee, of course. Alice mercilessly destroys the pleasant atmosphere. Yep, sounds about right. I walk up to Alice and stare into the capsule. It's obviously the same creature as the boss we defeated here, but it's far smaller. Han, Alice says, what are these glass containers for? These? Hey, I say, are you by any chance breeding monsters here? If that's the case, then this monster business is no mystery after all. Chaz, Alice says with a sigh. I don't know anything. I didn't even know this room existed. Alice stares at him. It's the truth! I believe you, for now. The headmaster must know of these capsules. Yeah, I say. And he probably knows the connection between this and the disappearance of Professor Holt. A grin falls on Alice's face. Yes, let's see the headmaster again. Come on, Chaz. What about these capsules? Just leave them. It'd be more dangerous to mess with them before speaking with the headmaster. Guess you're right. Then let's go. We take the flight of stairs back up, heading toward the one who can answer all of our questions. The headmaster.